how you feel, what you feel like is the difference between using a cane versus the activators?
Oh yeah. With the cane, it makes me lean to my right, and therefore I feel off balance, and so it's much slower moving. I don't feel the confidence to take off like I do with the poles. Once I have the poles in my hands, and it makes me stand straight up, and I just feel like I I can't fall. I just have more balance, no fear of falling, so I can just take off. The first time I ever used these, Kathy and I went out for a walk, and we just couldn't believe the difference. Um, um, she said right away, "Wow, look at you go!" And it wasn't that I was necessarily trying. I used to have a good walking speed before Parkinson's, but and that's what I've always strived for, but couldn't do with a cane or without any help. So as soon as I got the poles in my hands, it just came back, and I took off and was at least 2 to 3 times faster walking than with the cane. Um, just exciting to put them in my hands and start walking.
Was really shocked about is that there are over 300 independent peer-reviewed studies on PubMed on the benefits of using walking poles, and 18 of those are on Parkinson's, and that keeps growing every month. And what I was fascinated was the research really focuses on what I believe are our key goals for rehabilitation for Parkinson's. Improved posture. It forces you into that upright posture, so moving away from that shuffling gait pattern, the stooped posture. In terms of walking, you walk faster, your stride length is longer. It really normalizes your walking pattern. Why is that so important? Well, the research shows that the more your walking pattern is dysfunctional, the more likely you're at risk for falls. Because the poles do push you forward, there's more coordination, people report less freezing. So I took that research and I looked at, well, how do you design both the poles and the technique so it can be safer and more effective for conditions like Parkinson's? And really we came up with this patent design for the grip strength, where it's the ledge itself that is really key for balance, for pushing you upright into that upright posture, for core strengthening, and also just pushing you forward in terms of that gait speed, normalizing that gait pattern, and for more coordination. But more importantly, I want to talk to you about, well, what are your most important goals, or your clients if you are a rehab professional or fitness instructor? Well, what I've heard throughout the years is that people actually want to just feel more confident with walking. They want to be able to socialize again. And particularly right now during the pandemic, people want to figure out how can you get outside and, with socially distanced, still walk with friends and be active. Traveling, of course, when we're able to do it again, they want to know how to, prevent falls, or the fear around, reduce the fear around falling, how to stay active. Improve their walking. They want to feel good. And there's a recent study that has been done too, that people just feel more athletic. They feel like it's more about ability when they use walking poles versus other devices.
We are a proud partner of VITA, who promotes awareness of vestibular disorders, as well as looking at strategies to minimize symptoms of vestibular disorders. So let's talk about some other benefits. One of the things that is amazing about the activity is that it really focuses not only on 75 to 90% of your muscles, but on your core strengthening. So one of the most common questions that I get is, how does it help in terms of your core strengthening? I think people get how it works with that full body workout. You see me just walking with it before, but how does it work in terms of core strengthening? So let me just show you a quick little demonstration that I can do. Okay, so it's all based on you placing your hand around the grip itself here. We call this the core grip. And as you can see here, there's a ledge right here where you're going to rest your hand. Now, as you are stepping forward, with every step you take, you're actually going to press down on that ledge as you move forward. And when you're pressing down on that ledge, what you're essentially doing is you're actually pushing down and causing a contraction to happen in your abdominal muscles. So you can every time I push down, and if you're right now, you can do this demonstration along with me. You could stand up or you could sit down and just put your hand, as if you're giving a friendly handshake, place it on top of a table or the desk where your laptop is, as if you're pushing down this ledge. Put one hand on your abdominal muscles, and hopefully what you feel is a core contraction. You can also feel it in your lats, your pecs, your spina erector muscles. So essentially, it's not just about walking and balance, it's also about engaging those core muscles. And why is that so important? Because core strengthening is key to your ability to walk, to your ability to do sit to stand, and to minimize falls. And look at this stat below here. If you were just to walk for 1 mile, that would be 1,800 steps. You would actually achieve 1,800 abdominal contractions. So just such a simple, easy way to get outside and exercise, but at the same time, provide your body with that resistance training for that full body workout and core strengthening. It's very helpful in terms of your posture. And posture is really important in terms of how it impacts balance. So because you've got the poles bilaterally on both sides of your body, as you push down on the ledge here for that core strengthening, essentially what you're also doing is forcing your body into an upright position. And so again, the poles provide that bilateral support for you to have that greater balance, but also for you to actually lift up your knees and clear your feet. So why is that so important? One of the reasons why we know that people fall is because they tend to walk more flat-footed when they feel like they're going to lose their balance. It just feels like they've got more contact to the ground. But the challenge with that is that you're more likely to hit your foot on changes in the rug or the flooring or cracks in the sidewalks. And so optimally, what we want you to do is to have enough confidence that you can actually lift up your knees, clear your feet, particularly when you're walking in areas where there are different terrain and more obstacles, such as when you are hiking or on the beach, okay? The other thing is that the poles itself provide a visual, proprioceptive, sensory, and auditory cueing for negotiating different terrains. And so what you can do, your body can actually use this as a way to cue yourself as to, where your depth perception, your place in space. So here is a recent study that I found. It's actually a summary of studies of 15 peer-reviewed, good quality research. So let's go through this looking at balance. So first of all, what they did was they looked at, let's just compare people who are sedentary, people who are not exercising. What they found was that Nordic walking was able to improve dynamic balance and functional balance. Let's compare it to walking alone. And what they found again is that Nordic walking, again, compared to just walking alone, improved dynamic balance and quality of life. Let's compare it with resistance training, again, where they found that Nordic walking improved dynamic balance, again, and quality of life. Of course, when you have poor balance and dizziness, and that results in you being less able to do some of your activities, the natural outcome is anxiety and can be depression or mood. And these are two studies where it showed that using walking poles improved people's activity, improved overall their mood. They were less fatigued. They reported decreased depression and anger compared to walking alone. And it's one of the reasons actually why we use it here in Canada as well, just for simply mental health. Okay, here's one of the studies that we did on fall prevention, not myself, but at the Cape Breton University. And basically this was a group that was in the community that walked once a week with the activator poles and then did seated and standing exercises that were modified from the Otago fall prevention program. So the Otago study is one of the largest scale studies that have been done in the world on fall prevention. They took those exercises and modified them with poles as well as walking. And what they found is that there was a significant change in the falling assessment tools, which are all indicators for falls risk. So some of you may be familiar with the TUG, which is the first one, timed up and go. And this is from Julie. And Julie basically suffered a concussion, which resulted in her having a severe vestibular dysfunction. She saw the activator poles on the Vita Facebook, and basically what she commented on was that I just knew they would help me in my recovery. Finally, 3 weeks ago, my vestibular function started to return slowly, enough for me to try walking. I'm happy to say that they helped me to feel secure, more stable. I was able to walk up and down the driveway with using my poles to prevent me from losing my balance and keeping me safe. Since then, I've graduated to be able to walk around the block. I'm absolutely certain I would not be able to do this without my activator poles. I can't say enough good things about how secure I feel with my activators. They will continue to be an integral component of my vestibular recovery. So thank you so much, Julie. Julie had a lot of great components in there. One of them being that, about doing the program gradually, using your poles on a gradual basis. Use the poles not only for helping you to walk, do a fitness activity, but also it can be very beneficial for seated and standing exercises. So right now in Canada, I would say physiotherapists and occupational therapists are using it just as much for mobility training as they are for seated and standing exercises. Okay, so what would be the benefits of exercising with poles? Well, they're very similar to the benefits I talked to you about with using it for walking. So again, you've got this bilateral support. So that's going to increase your balance and your confidence for doing particularly these standing exercises or increasing your range, right? Particularly when you're leaning forward or in different directions where you feel less confident about your movement. Again, it forces you in those standing exercises to be in a nice upright posture, okay? By pressing down on that ledge. For a lot of your exercises, it's going to provide you, again, with that visual, auditory, proprioceptive, and sensory cueing to actually do the movements. What you're going to find is that it actually makes exercising more fun. It's another tool in your toolbox to motivate you to do your home-based exercises. I know as a therapist, sometimes we prescribe exercises and people do them for a couple weeks, but then they find they get a little boring. Hopefully what you're going to find with the poles and the exercises I'm going to show you is that it's going to allow you to do more creative exercises. It's going to allow you to do them with more confidence, using bigger movements, more range, and hopefully that's going to motivate you as well to continue on with your program. And what I'd like to talk to you about too is how can these exercises are used a lot in terms of fall prevention programs. Because let's look at some of the 6 most common age-related changes that increase falls risk. And I think you'll see that the polls really correlate with improving these. So we talked about reduced strength, so improving strength, balance, loss of flexibility. So I mentioned when you got the poles, it's going to allow you to do bigger movements, bigger range of motion. Of course, that results in a greater ability to improve your flexibility, decrease endurance, and decline ability and desire to walk. And here's just another testimonial. This is from Patricia, just to show you in terms of how she's used it in terms of rehabilitation. So Patricia actually, her body reacted to an antibiotic that she was given to treat sepsis, and she found that she was getting constant dizziness, jumpy vision, loss of balance. So she was attending physiotherapy. She graduated from a walker to hiking poles. She said she was using trekking poles until she came across the ad looking at the Vita website. And she said, I am very satisfied with my urban poles. I never leave home without them. They gave me the confidence support needed to walk upright without feeling like I'm about to fall. So my disability, like the pandemic, changed my life, but there are always things to be grateful. Family, friends, a great medical team, and of course, my urban poles.
We're going to speak about how I've incorporated the activator poles into my practice with people with MS. And as you can see, one of my primary responsibilities is as Director of Rehabilitation Services at the International MS Management Practice. And I have the fortunate opportunity to see people with MS, and also fortunate to have the ability to incorporate the activator poles in their balance and gait program. Much of what I'll be speaking about. When I see people with MS, often I will look at a patient who has any type of walking disorders, mobility disorders, and start immediately thinking about the balance system and how to address the potential for falls and fall prevention. I look at their gait and consider how their gait may be limited. And there are several studies that suggest that the biggest complaint that people with MS have is gait dysfunction. They're wondering why they have difficulty with their balance system. It's because their hands are sending those signals to the brain that we would like the legs to do that. So by incorporating the activator poles into an aggressive balance training program, we should be able to take this away, or at least decrease that abnormal reaching out. So the way that we think about activator poles being incorporated for rehab programs for people with MS is to increase weight-bearing activities. And by increasing those weight-bearing activities, as I indicated, we can get increased neuroplastic changes, because when we're standing, there are a series of muscles that are working. It's not just one muscle, there's many muscles. And when we consider standing and walking, ultimately, if we think of a muscle working, just strengthening a muscle or moving a joint will not overall allow for better balance or better walking. The analogy I commonly use is that if you gave me a trumpet and I blew into the trumpet and pushed down all the buttons, I would make a sound, but I'm not making music. Making music requires a certain sequencing, and that's what's needed for neuroplastic changes to have a beneficial effect. And I believe this starts with weight-bearing, standing activities. Now, weight-bearing activities do not necessarily need to be just for people with balance issues. They could be for people who don't have any major walking limitations. People who have MS of 4.0 on the EDSS scale, which indicates walking is not a primary limitation, they can benefit from weight-bearing activities as well. This may be a patient who has neurogenic fatigue. They can walk, but their walking gets tired after 20 minutes or 30 minutes. Using activator poles can help that.
Over the course of living with MS for 18 years, there's many incarnations of it.
Jamie Lynn Sigler is doing more than just living with MS.
Physically, I'm doing great. I've been stable for many years.
She's in a healthy place physically and emotionally, and has actually gained a new perspective because of the disease.
I'm trying to focus on what it's actually given me. It's slowed me down and allowed me to look at the world and my life in a much greater way. It's led me down a more spiritual path, which I appreciate. So I'm in a good place.
And then if we go to the other side of the spectrum of the EDSS scale, the patients who are sort of stuck in a wheelchair all day, these are patients, people who can stand up and may benefit from standing up so they can take a couple of steps to get to the toilet or take a couple of steps within their house to be able to perform a basic function that they want to be able to do. So if we consider the fact that this is not just for people who want to walk better, this is for the whole balance system, we can consider that the balance of standing can benefit anybody. And standing is again, the most important aspect of what I'm talking about here. Now, another reason I use activated poles is to improve walking. Now, again, there are some people with MS who aren't able to walk. I'm going to spend a little time on talking about the people who are having difficulty with walking, primarily because the balance system is not at the level that it's needed to be able to walk safely. And the concern is that this patient population with MS starts to decondition simply because they're fearful of walking. They don't want to walk because they're not sure they can walk well. Patients with MS who don't want to walk will get deconditioned, and which will create an increased risk of falling. And this can all be prevented, in my opinion, by incorporating more standing exercises, more walking exercises with an appropriate modality. In this case, we're talking about the activated poles. This is different than using a cane, because this is not about just giving an assistive device. This is not something that's supposed to make you look disabled. These poles can ultimately help recover function that otherwise would have been lost. By using the activated poles, what can happen is a patient will be more confident in walking longer, even if they have to rest for a little bit. And if they get overheated, they're not going to be fearful that their legs are going to give out on them, because they will be able to utilize their arms in a functional way that won't create an abnormal response. And it will allow for those normal lower extremity, the leg strategies, which the therapist should be working on to improve the ankles and then the hips, and then the ability to take a step if you happen to lose your balance way before the hands reach out. And when you use the activated poles, you will hopefully learn how to incorporate the activated poles in fall prevention as well. But the main goal is really to get those legs working so they are able to shift weight and function in a more normal pattern. And we talk about weight shifting because ultimately the idea of moving your body in different directions is what will make the difference between you being confident in functioning and being fearful, which again is what I work with most of my patients to avoid.
My name is Angie Clark, and one of the programs I oversee is the Next Steps walking program in Oakville and in Mississauga. This program started as a pilot project just over 2 years ago, and that's when I became involved with March of Dimes. It's been a great program to be a part of. I've enjoyed watching the participants work hard to reach their goals. So, what is Next Steps? Next Steps is a program that focuses on having fun, setting goals, and staying motivated while walking. This weekly program meets and operates at an indoor mall setting with easy access to washrooms and seating. Every program is a little bit different. So my Oakville group, they socialize before and then they walk after, whereas my Mississauga group, they walk first and then socialize after. So it just depends on the program and how it works there. When you come for the first time, all participants have access to the urban polling activator poles. I have them for free use to borrow while you're at the program. I set the poles to the appropriate height and then do a brief tutorial of how it works. And then they go off on their own. At first, it can be a little bit difficult using the poles, but once they get the hang of it, they really enjoy using them and it really helps them reach their goal. So I wanted to include some testimonials. So one participant said, "I really like the great support. I've made new friends." Another participant said, "My walking has really improved. I feel so much stronger." I had one participant that joined. He was more eager to socialize than to walk. So when he came, he would walk one lap. I think it was just to appease me. And then he would go on and socialize. And as the weeks and months went on, he started walking more and more. He was motivated seeing everyone else achieve their goals. And he worked really hard. And right before we had to put the program on hold because of COVID, he was doing 5 laps.
Back in 2013, I had a brainstem stroke, which affected both sides of my body. I had very limitation to being able to get up on my own, get dressed on my own. As a result of it, I was wheelchair bound for almost a year. I managed to try to get up on my own and do different activities, and I started off with urban poling. I was managing to getting up with one pole at a time. Through my Aurelia Stroke group, they told me about it. They gave me a set of poles. It was once a week at a time. I was giving them a shot for 15 minutes a day. From there, I went on to doing it now. As a result, using them every day. It gives me a good push when I'm walking, and I move my limbs a lot more, and it's helped my right shoulder, helps me get off the floor if I have struggles or anywhere I am. I would definitely say to anyone wanting to use activated poles is to start off small, let it be indoors to start, and at a local gym. Start with 3 times a week if you can for 15 minutes a day, which I did myself, and work your way up to trying every day for at least 15 minutes, and then work your way up even farther with 30 minutes like I have. It's been fantastic, and I love my urban poles, and I can't thank enough.
So he saw me walking on poles. I said, Glenn, what's your problem? Said, to me, it looks like you've got Parkinson's. He said, yeah. And he said, I said, what do you do for exercise? I don't do anything. And I said, well, we've got a gym, and the first thing I'm going to get you, and I saw him today when I was out on my walk, and I said, Glenn, I'm going to talk about you today, because when he moved here a year ago, he could hardly walk 3 houses down to get his mail. You look at him now, and I said, Glenn, your gait is so much better. He says, Jack, my gait is normal. And because he walks every day, and he's got an attendant walking the dog beside him, and he walks with the poles. He is stronger, his upper body is stronger. It's affecting and helping his bones, which is not a part of Parkinson's, but he has excellent control. His gait is better, and he's not falling, and he is now, the family has just got him a trike. And he's going to try to get back to riding again because his balance has improved with the poles themselves. The best poles are called activator poles.
Here's another example. This is Wendy Walker. She's from the UK. She's a neurological therapist. I'm not sure if you're familiar with Physiopedia, but it is an international resource for best practices. Wendy, we asked her to trial the activator poles, and she had a gentleman who used a cane. I believe in Australia you say walking stick. But basically what she wrote in the article was that the most dramatic success was with a mature gentleman with a mild stroke. Once he tried the activator poles, his gait improved enormously with a more even stride, cadence, and length. The result was instant. He felt much more confident and better balanced.
I have my pole, and I can rest just that part in my hand, then all the pressure is off of the part of my hand that hurts. So I don't have that hand pain anymore while I'm using. So it just keeps going on and on. All the benefits for me. I want to stop everybody I see using a cane or a walker and say, let me tell you about these. Let me tell you what they can do for you. And so.
Thanks so much for taking the time to visit our booth and also for viewing this summary of the many applications of our evidence-based program. Just to say that even with a short time in the US market, we are just thrilled with all of the partnerships that we have been able to develop. Rock Steady Boxing, PWR, the vestibular organization VITA, Living Beyond Breast Cancer, Above and Beyond Cancer, as well as the International Council of Activity and Aging. And now our poles have been approved under the Arthritis Foundation Ease of Use program. In addition to these wonderful organizations that are recognizing the value of our products and program, we also do want to note our education partners who have provided approval for all of our courses, both for therapists as well as other healthcare professionals and medical fitness professionals. We are truly grateful for all of these relationships that we have been able to build and are looking forward to continuing to work with these organizations as well as new potential partnerships in the future. Thank you again. Any questions that you have, please feel free to reach out. If you're looking to implement urban polling program, we're always happy to work with you and connect you with local distributors. Take care.